nutritional issues we have to look at for this video. Things like what are functional foods, various diets, and then in future videos we'll move more into some disorders and some other parts of nutritional issues. Now, nutritional issues. Start looking across the globe. There is a multitude of different diets depending on where you're located, what your beliefs are, and what food is actually available to you. Now, the diet really is meant to complement the goal of overall wellness. You're trying to make sure your whole body feels good, both physically and mentally. Not just, I don't want to be sick, but you actually want to make sure you feel good. Now, this mentality is more of a modern mentality because if you go backwards, a lot of times work was more physical. There's a lot more physical labor in the day just maintaining a household. But as we've come into the modern age, a lot of that physicality has been lessened or completely removed. That means current lifestyles are more sedentary. There's more availability of food also currently than there used to be. More choices, more options. And it's this increase in sedentary lifestyle, decrease in physical labor for some for work, and an increase in options of food that has all led to potentially the problems that we have now. Talking about the obesity epidemic. So let's start looking into what are functional foods and how these can help with that a little bit. Now, functional foods are broken down into four main categories, but they're meant to meet your basic nutritional needs, as well as reportedly helping to fight off illness and the aging process. Now, obviously, you can't stop aging. You can't completely fight every illness. Everyone gets sick at times. These are meant to help out. So the first one up is going to be conventional foods. Now, in the case of conventional foods, these are going to be whole foods that really haven't been modified. So things that are just the way they were grown, the way they are produced. So you're looking at whole fruits, whole vegetables here. Because your whole fruits and whole vegetables are going to have an abundance of phytochemicals and antioxidants, both of which can help the body to stay healthy and fight off infection and problems. Yogurt, for example, is another one. It's going to have natural probiotics, helping out with your GI health. You're going to have also dark chocolate in moderation, but it has to be more than 70% cocoa, and that then has an increase in antioxidants for your body. So just some ideas of what conventional foods can be. Doesn't mean they can't be manufactured. Chocolate obviously is manufactured, but just has to be more along the lines of whole, nutritious, things that help out supporting your body. Second one, looking at modified foods. Now, in the case of modified foods, they've been fortified, or they've been enriched, or they've been enhanced with nutrients to help out. But they're all meant to give an extra helping aid to the body. So some examples, calcium fortified orange juice. That's one way. Another one, iodized salt. That's where most of the iodine comes from, at least in the US diet. Then vitamin B being substituted and basically enhanced in breads. You have fortified cereals as well. All these are meant to help give an increase in nutrients into the body in foods that they wouldn't normally have been in. Now, there are some other modified foods that go into things claiming they do certain aspects. And now, not all these health claims have been verified, which means they might simply just be saying this with no backing behind it. Sometimes you'll see, for example, sports drinks with herbs in them. Now, may they be helpful? Maybe, maybe not. But a lot of them don't have any scientific backing to show what's going on in that case. Third one, medical foods. Now, a lot of us won't be having these medical foods because medical foods are designed specifically for enteric administration. Now, enteric, what that means is that liquid, that food that goes down, is not being broken down in the stomach, but it's instead going right through the stomach and being broken down only in the small intestines. There's more of a direct targeting to the small intestines. This can be beneficial because the small intestines is really where you absorb your nutrients. The stomach is meant to help grind things up, mix things up, put some enzymes in, but doesn't have any digestive absorption occurring. So these medical foods heading right to the small intestines. A lot of times they are liquid-based formulas. Things that are meant to help patients that have kidney diseases or liver diseases, or in some cases, diabetics. So they're specifically meant to help a very particular instance of a disorder or disease. And that's why a lot of us just won't have these because we might not have that disorder or disease. Specialty dietary foods. Now this is a huge industry because in the case of specialty dietary foods, they're targeting particular needs, but they're sold retail-based. You don't need a doctor to get these. These could be things like gluten-free, could be lactose-free foods, could be weight loss foods like weight loss shakes. So they're trying to help out different demographics, different areas of people, but not having to have a medical prescription for them where someone's just trying to basically do it on their own. A lot of times gluten-free, I'll get into this more when we talk about the diets, the person might not have to be gluten-free completely, but they're choosing to be. Or maybe it's the way they feel better. Their body's just working better if they're not doing that. So these are the specialty dietary foods. Not necessarily for weight loss, but maybe just for helping to manage something that they're working on. Well, those are the functional foods. Let's shift over into the popular diets. And now this is only a sampling. There are so many different diets out there. There's no way to cover them all. So these popular diets they'll go through, they're really meant to take these functional foods and take them a step further. You're trying to address a particular health problem or health concern with an overall diet of what you're eating. Now, some of these popular diets are fad-based, some are very extreme, and these extreme ones could be problematic, so be careful. And some are very rooted in research. They've been around for years. So it all depends on which diet you're looking at. And it doesn't matter if one is heavily done in scientific research or if it's a fad diet. Do your research. Look into it. See what the shortcomings are. See what the benefits are. See if it's right for you. Because no matter what, every person has a different nutritional intake and different nutritional need. You have to find out what diet works for you. Or basically not necessarily diet, but what course of food intake works. So the first one, let's talk about the DASH diet. Now, DASH actually stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. So DASH, Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. The idea here is you're trying to reduce the amount of sodium intake. By reducing the amount of sodium intake, it's been heavily shown throughout different researches and studies, so it's evidence-based here, that this eating plan is meant to help reduce blood pressure, help to also possibly reduce health risks, for example, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, and even osteoporosis. But the big one a lot of times is that blood pressure. So the way this works, quick little synopsis here, is if you reduce the amount of sodium, water follows sodium. So less salt, less sodium in the body, less water following through to balance it out. Which means if there's less water in the blood, there's less volume to the blood. Less volume means blood pressure has gone down. That's the very basic way of looking at it. But the idea is less sodium, blood pressure drops. Now, some people will follow the DASH diet because they have high blood pressure and they have to lower it, while others will simply follow the DASH diet as a healthy way of eating, try to maintain a healthy blood pressure. Looking at mostly whole grains, high fiber fruits and vegetables, lean meats, low fat dairy, So it's more of a healthy overall lifestyle here. You're limiting the amount of sweets and limiting the amount of alcohol. So that's the DASH diet. Next one up is the gluten-free diet. Now the name kind of tells you what this one does, but it's meant to help out those that either are gluten intolerant or they have celiac disease, for example. The idea is gluten is going to be a protein found in wheat, rye, barley, for some examples. Now, this protein is what causes the problem. So it's not the overall food, but it's that protein in the food. So a lot of times, that protein will cause the reaction that people have if they have a gluten intolerance or in the case of celiac disease. And we'll talk a little more about celiac disease later in a future video. Low carb diets. This isn't really just one diet, it's actually a grouping of diets because you've heard of it by many different names. You'll hear of it things like Atkins diet or the South Beach diet or the paleo diet or the keto diet. They're all low carb based. The idea is you're limiting the amount of carbs, limiting your grains, your fruits, your starchy vegetables. You're reducing those so you don't have as much of that carbohydrate coming into your system. Now, I already mentioned the paleo diet. Well, really the full term is the Paleolithic diet. The idea is this diet, you're supposed to mimic what those individuals ate in the Stone Age. So no dairy, for example. Looking at grass-fed animals, healthy fats, non-starchy vegetables. Again, keep the carbohydrates down. The other one I mentioned was keto. That's actually the ketogenic diet. It's high protein and healthy fat-based. Now, this one, dairy's allowed, but without added sugar. So paleo and keto are very similar, but keto allows the dairy, but without added sugar. The overall thought process for all these low-carb diets is that by having low carb, it'll force your body to burn fat because you don't have the carbohydrates to burn. Now, the problem is it hasn't been substantiated in any studies. They've looked at studies and studies, and they just don't seem to find the evidence to prove that. What they have seen is that if you're on a low-carb diet for about 2 years, they're showing that the average weight loss is about 9 pounds. Now, going into any other diet that wasn't restricting carbohydrates, they found the same rough amount of weight loss, about 9 pounds again. So therefore, they're not showing that the low carb is any more beneficial than any other diet. And the problem, though, they're saying here is by really restricting the carbohydrates, it can actually cause potential issues in the body. Because we've already talked about in past videos how your brain needs so much glucose to function. There's many body systems need glucose to function. By limiting how much carbohydrates are there, limiting how much glucose is around could become problematic. Now, does a low-carb diet work for some people? Sure. It all depends on how you balance it and how your body adjusts to it. If certain problems, little red flags pop up, it's time to back off. So that's the low-carb diet. Might help some, might help others. The macrobiotic diet. Now, in the case of the macrobiotic diet, it's actually mixing two things together. It's mixing the tenets of Buddhism with the ideas of vegetarianism. What's happening here is foods are paired, so two foods are brought together based on their yin and yang characteristics. So in the case of yin, foods that are more characterized as yin is more sweet, cold, and passive. While the yang characteristic for foods is going to be more of the lines of salty, hot, and aggressive. So the idea is to bring these together to balance out. Now this diet is heavily based in whole grains. About 50% of the diet is whole grain based. The rest is focused on low saturated fat as well as high fiber. The problem is then there's some concerns here from a health perspective. if this diet is very strictly followed, like right to the letter, it's a very low protein, low caloric, and a low on vitamins and minerals, which means an individual could become deficit in many different categories very quickly. So while it is a diet to follow, you gotta kind of watch where is it for the point to be healthy. If it's strictly followed, it might not be best for your body, but somebody else might work for. Again, watch your body, read the signs, and see if you're getting, track things, enough vitamins, enough minerals. Is there enough calories to meet your basal metabolic rates? So again, keeping track and doing your research is very important with a lot of these diets, especially this one. Next up is one I'm willing to bet you might have heard of, the Mediterranean diet. In the case of the Mediterranean diet, it's looking at the food that individuals from Greece or southern Italy would be eating. Looking at small portions of nutritionally dense foods. Fish, poultry, at least twice a week, if not 3 times a week. Looking at red meats, just a couple times a month, so that's definitely on the lower side. Vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds really are the main components of this diet. Now, this diet has gone through years of research on it. And from all the research they've done on this Mediterranean diet, they've shown that individuals that regularly follow the Mediterranean diet are going to have some of the lowest instances of chronic diseases and some of the longest or highest amounts of longevity for life. So it's been shown to be a very healthy lifestyle if you can get in the habit of eating a Mediterranean diet. It helps reduce weight, reduce blood pressure, helps lower blood fat levels as well as blood sugar levels. So plenty of health benefits to the Mediterranean diet. Raw food diets. Just like the name implies, they're meant to have raw foods. Now in this case, you're trying to cook as little as possible. So it's a lot of fruits and vegetables that can be eaten raw, no problems. It's not meant to be more of a weight loss diet, but more of a lifestyle in this case. So you're really looking at the benefits you get from eating the raw fruits and the raw vegetables. The idea here is if you're cooking the fruits or cooking the vegetables, some of the nutrients, some of the benefits are being lost in the cooking process. So trying to maximize on the wholeness of the foods. So looking again, fruits, veggies, grains, nuts, seeds really are the predominant ones here. Protein and dairy and fat, though, are usually lacking in the diet, which can be concerning for vitamin intake. Vitamins A, D, E, and K, those fat-soluble vitamins, might not have the fat to absorb enough and properly. So you gotta kind of watch out, again, vary and modify to make sure you're not becoming deficit. Last one, vegan or vegetarianism. Now, there's many reasons an individual might choose to be vegan or vegetarianism. Could be a spiritual basis, could be out of respect for the animals, could be out of health concerns. But whatever the reasons are, you're looking at mostly beans and grains, fruits and vegetables as what you're eating here. Now, in the case of vegetarianism, there are some modifications. You have lacto-vegetarianism. In that case, they're able to eat milk or dairy products. Then there's ovo-lacto, egg and dairy products in this case. But if someone chooses to be vegan, vegan is the most strict of all the levels. It's more restrictive. There is no animal products at all. So nothing dairy, no eggs, as well as no honey. So that's a true strict vegan in that case. Now there are health benefits, for sure in this case. Health as far as the heart disease is reduced, diabetes can be helped and modified, obesity is reduced or prevented. But there can be missing components. Calcium, iron, omega-3, vitamin B12 could be short in the diet if you're not getting a rotation of different foods. So if somebody is planning out their meals and really paying attention to what they're eating, they can make sure and get all that no problem. But if someone's not quite planning as much as they should, it could be concerning. Certain individuals just choose to have a vitamin B12 shot to help make up for any loss or missing there. But this healthy diet, vegan or vegetarianism, it can be very healthy as long as you're monitoring your intake, making sure you're getting all your nutrients, all your vitamins, and all your minerals. So plenty of diets, some functional foods to go along, plenty of information to look at. Until the next video.